Allah named one false god in the Quran, only one, by name. Think about that. Across all the idols, all the statues, all the gods that humanity has bowed to since the beginning of time, Allah chose to mention one of them directly, by its own name, inside his final book. Not Hubal, not Lata, not Uzzah, a god worshipped thousands of years before the Quraysh ever carved a single idol, a god whose name made entire nations tremble, whose altars ran red, whose priests held kings in the palm of their hands. His name was Baal, and the story of how one prophet stood alone against an entire kingdom that worshipped this god, a kingdom led by a queen so ruthless her name became a curse for 3,000 years, is one of the most terrifying and forgotten stories in all of sacred history. To understand it, we have to go back to a valley where a single man dared to say one word that no one else would say. The land was called the land of milk and honey. But by the time our story begins, it was choking on blood. Picture the northern kingdom of the children of Israel, centuries after Musa alayhi salam had split the sea, centuries after Dawood alayhi salam and Sulaiman alayhima salam had ruled in glory. The temple still stood. The memory of the one God still lived in the mouths of the elders. But something had changed. Something had rotted from the inside. The Quran tells us about a prophet sent to these people. His name was Ilyas alayhi salam, the one many traditions know as Elijah. Allah says of him in Surah As-Saffat, and the meaning is this: and indeed, Ilyas alayhi salam was among the messengers. When he said to his people, "Will you not fear Allah? Do you call upon Baal and abandon the best of creators, Allah, your Lord and the Lord of your forefathers?" Read those words again slowly. Do you call upon Baal? There it is. The name, spoken by a prophet, recorded by Allah, preserved for all time. But who was Baal? And why had an entire nation traded the God of Musa alayhi salam for a lump of carved stone? To understand that, you have to understand what Baal actually was. Not the way children imagine an idol, but the way the ancient world truly saw him. Baal was not just a statue. Baal was a system, a religion, an economy, a way of life that wrapped its roots around every part of human existence. In the old Canaanite world, Baal was the storm god, the lord of rain, the master of thunder and lightning, and in a land where everything depended on the rain, where a single dry season meant famine, where water meant the difference between a child living and dying, a god who claimed to control the rain was the most powerful god you could imagine. The people believed that if you fed Baal, he fed you. If you pleased Baal, the clouds would gather and the crops would grow and your animals would multiply and your children would not starve. And if you ignored Baal, the sky would turn to brass, the earth would crack, and you would watch everything you loved wither and die. Do you see how the trap worked? It was not built on love. It was built on fear, cold, gnawing, desperate fear. And fear is the easiest chain to put on a human heart. The priests of Baal understood this better than anyone. They built temples on every high hill. They raised altars under every green tree. They told the people that the rain was for sale, and the price was devotion, sacrifice, and submission to them. The more afraid the people became, the more powerful the priests became. The more powerful the priests became, the richer they grew. And the richer they grew, the more they tightened their grip on the throne itself. This was not a religion of the poor seeking comfort. This was a machine of control, a god invented to enslave. Now here is the part that the people forgot, the very thing they were afraid of. The rain, the wind, the thunder, the storm. None of it ever belonged to Baal. Not for a single second. The rain that they begged a stone idol to send was being sent all along by the one they had abandoned. Every drop that fell on their fields came from the mercy of Allah. They were thanking a corpse of stone for the gifts of the living God. And that is the most heartbreaking kind of blindness there is. To be drowning in someone's mercy and to praise a statue for it. But the rot did not stop at the temples. It climbed all the way to the palace. Because at the very top of this kingdom sat a king who had married a foreign queen, a queen who did not just believe in Baal. She had come to destroy everyone who didn't. And her arrival is where this story turns from a tragedy into a war. Her name has echoed through 3,000 years as a symbol of cruelty. In the traditions, she is remembered as Jezebel, a princess from the coastal kingdom of the Baal worshippers, brought into the royal house through marriage. She did not come empty-handed. She came with priests, hundreds of them. She came with prophets of Baal who ate at the king's own table. And she came with a single burning mission to wipe the worship of the one God off the face of the land forever. Understand what kind of force had now been unleashed. This was no longer a matter of a few confused villagers praying to the wrong God. This was state power. This was a crown, a throne, an army, and an entire priesthood, all aimed at one target: the truth. She hunted the believers. The narrations describe a slaughter, a deliberate campaign to kill anyone who still called upon Allah. The prophets of God went into hiding. Some were hidden in caves, fed in secret, kept alive only by those few souls brave enough to risk everything. The lamps of faith were being snuffed out one by one, and the darkness was spreading across the whole kingdom. Imagine living in those days. Imagine being one of the last few who still remembered. You keep your prayers a secret. You whisper the name of Allah only behind closed doors. You watch your neighbors bow to the storm god in the open square, and you stay silent, because to speak is to die. The whole nation had gone over the cliff. The king, the queen, the priests, the soldiers, the merchants, the farmers. Almost every single person had bent the knee to Baal, almost. Because there was one man who would not bend, one voice that would not be silenced, one prophet who looked at the most powerful kingdom of his age, with its armies and its idols and its murderous queen, and felt no fear at all. Ilyas, alayhi salam. He walked among them like a man from another world. While the entire nation begged Baal for rain, Ilyas alayhi salam knew the truth that they had all forgotten. That the sky answers to no idol, that the clouds gather only by the command of Allah, that a stone cannot send a single raindrop, no matter how many sacrifices burn before it. And so Ilyas alayhi salam did something that must have sounded like madness to everyone who heard it. He declared that the rain would stop, not for a day, not for a season. He declared that the heavens would lock shut, that not one drop would fall until the people turned back to their Lord. The God they worshipped was the God of rain, so Allah, through His Prophet, would strike them at the exact point of their false belief. You worship Baal for rain, then let Baal give you rain. Let us all watch and see what the storm god can do. The sky turned to iron. The clouds disappeared, the rivers shrank, the wells went dry, the green hills turned brown, then grey, then to dust, and still, the people ran to the temples of Baal. They cried out to the stone, they burned more offerings, they begged the god of thunder for one single cloud, and the heavens stayed silent. This is the terrifying power of a hard heart. A man can be starving, dying of thirst, watching his children waste away. And instead of questioning the false god that has failed him, he will blame himself for not sacrificing enough. He will give the idol more and more and more, while the answer stands right in front of him the whole time. The famine spread. The kingdom that had mocked the Prophet of Allah was now on its knees, not in worship but in hunger. And the king, the husband of the murderous queen, began to search for the man he blamed for all of it. He called Ilyas alayhi salam a troublemaker, the destroyer of the kingdom. He sent men to find him. But the truth was the opposite. Ilyas alayhi salam had not destroyed the kingdom. The kingdom had destroyed itself the moment it knelt to a lie. The prophet had only pulled back the curtain so everyone could see it. And when the king and the prophet finally stood face to face, Ilyas alayhi salam made a challenge so bold, so dangerous, so absolute, that it would settle the question of Baal forever. He challenged the entire priesthood, every prophet of Baal, hundreds against one, a contest, in front of the whole nation, and what he proposed would either expose Baal as nothing or end Ilyas's alayhi salam life on the spot. Bring the people, all of them, to the mountain. That was the demand. Gather every soul in the kingdom. Bring the hundreds of priests of Baal. Bring the queen's prophets who eat at the royal table, and let us settle this once and for all in the open, where no one can lie about what they saw. The mountain was filled with people, a sea of faces. I'm confused, I'm afraid, I'm curious. The ones who still remembered the one God and the ones who had forgotten him entirely. And in the middle of all of them stood one man, alone, against an army of priests. Ilyas alayhi salam turned to the crowd and asked them a question that cuts through 3,000 years and lands in your chest right now. How long will you waver between two opinions? If Allah is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, then follow him. Silence. The crowd said nothing, not a word, because deep down they knew. They had always known. But knowing the truth and having the courage to stand on it are two different things. So Ilyas alayhi salam set the terms. 2 altars, one for Baal, built by his priests, one for Allah, built by Ilyas alayhi salam. On each, an offering, but no fire. No man would light the flame. Whichever God answers by sending down fire from the heavens, that is the true God. It was perfect, it was devastating, because the God of storm, the God of thunder and lightning, the Lord of fire from the sky, if Baal was real, this was the one thing he should be able to do with ease. The priests went first. Hundreds of them surrounded their altar. They called on Baal from morning. "O Baal, answer us." They shouted his name. They danced around the altar. The sun climbed higher. Nothing. They cried louder. They cut themselves, the old narrations say, until their blood ran down, screaming for their God to send just one spark. Nothing. No voice. No fire. No answer. Only the wind moving over a dead altar and a God who had never been alive to begin with. Hour after hour. The crowd watched, the desperate dance, the bleeding priests, the empty sky, the most powerful priesthood in the land, hundreds strong, backed by the throne and the army and the wealth of the kingdom, and they could not summon a single flame. This is what every false god looks like when the moment of truth finally comes. Loud, frantic, bleeding, and utterly powerless. Then it was Ilyas's alayhi salam turn. And here, he did something no one expected. He did not rush. He did not panic. He made it harder for himself. He had water poured over his altar, once, twice, a third time, until the wood was soaked, until the trench around it overflowed. Fire and water are enemies. He drowned his own offering, so that when the flame came, no human being could ever claim it was a trick. Then this one man, standing alone before a hostile nation, lifted his hands. And he did not shout, he did not scream, he did not dance or cut himself. He simply called on his Lord with a quiet, steady heart. O Allah, let it be known today that you are God, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all of this by your command. The whole mountain held its breath. And then it came. Fire fell from the sky, not a spark, not a flicker, a blast of fire from above the heavens that struck the soaked altar and consumed everything. The offering, the wood, the very stones. It licked up the water in the trench until not a drop remained. The ground itself seemed to burn. The crowd fell on their faces, every single one of them, the same people who had wavered, who had stayed silent, who had bowed to a stone. They collapsed to the earth and cried out the truth that had been buried in their hearts the whole time. Allah is God. Allah is God. In one moment the spell broke. In one moment the lie of Baal, the lie that had ruled this nation, killed its believers and starved its children, was exposed as nothing. A corpse of stone, a name with no power, a God who could not light a fire even to save his own worshippers. But the breaking of a lie is never the end of the story, because a lie that has been protected by a throne does not die quietly. And when news of what happened on that mountain reached the palace, when the murderous queen heard that her hundreds of priests had been humiliated, that her God had been shamed before the whole kingdom, she did not repent. She swore to kill him. You would think that after fire fell from the sky, the story would end in triumph, that the prophet would be carried through the streets, the queen would fall to her knees, and the whole nation would live in faith forever. But that is not how the human heart works, and that is the part of this story that should make every one of us afraid. When the queen heard what had happened, she sent a message to Ilyas alayhi salam. Not a message of surrender, a death threat. By this time tomorrow, she swore, you will be as dead as my priests. And here is the most human moment in the entire account. Ilyas alayhi salam, the man who had just called fire down from the sky, who had stood alone against hundreds and one. This same man was overcome with exhaustion and fear. He fled into the wilderness. He sat under a lone tree in the desert and, the traditions tell us, he asked to die. He felt utterly alone. He believed he was the last believer left in the entire world. Sit with that. The greatest day of his life was followed by the darkest night of his soul. This is the truth that no one tells you about faith. Even the messengers of Allah felt the weight crush down on them. Even they had moments where the fear became too heavy to carry. But Allah did not abandon his servant in that desert. He sent comfort, he sent provision. He told Ilyas alayhi salam a secret that lifted the despair off his shoulders, that he was not the last believer, that there were still thousands of souls in the land who had never bowed to Baal. The light had never been fully extinguished. It had only gone underground, waiting. And there is a lesson buried in that desert that I need you to hear, wherever you are sitting right now. When you feel like the last good person in a corrupt world, when you feel like you are the only one praying, the only one resisting, the only one who still cares, you are not alone. You have never been alone. Allah always keeps his servants. You simply cannot see all of them. But the kingdom itself, the throne that had protected Baal, its fate was sealed. The famine had already gutted the land. The people had seen the truth with their own eyes, and the royal house that had murdered the believers and worshipped a lie would not escape the justice of Allah. The narrations describe the downfall of that dynasty in terrible detail. The king who fell in battle, the bloodline that was wiped out, and the queen herself meeting an end so violent and so degrading that her name became a permanent symbol of arrogance. This is the pattern. Read it across the whole Quran and you will see it again and again. The people of Nuh alayhi salam who drowned, the people of Ad whom the wind tore apart, the people of Thamud whom the scream silenced, Firaun who chased a prophet into the sea and was swallowed by it. Every single time the same story. A nation is given the truth, a nation is warned, a nation chooses the lie. And then, when the line is finally crossed, the command comes down, and it is never reversed. Allah is patient. Allah is merciful beyond anything we can imagine. He warns once, twice, 10 times. He sends prophets. He sends signs. He even sent fire from the sky as a final, undeniable proof. But there is a point of no return for a nation that loves its lie more than its Lord. And the worship of Baal did not vanish completely, even after all of this. That is the most chilling part. Generations later, the old idols crept back. The high places were rebuilt. The altars rose again. Because a heart that wants to be deceived will always find a new idol to bow to. The form changes, The name changes, but the disease is always the same. And that is the question this entire story has been building toward. The question that turns a tale from 3,000 years ago into a mirror held up to your own face. Because Baal never really died, he just changed his clothes. And if you look closely enough, you may find that he is being worshipped all around you, and maybe in some quiet corner of your own heart, by you. So let me ask you the same question Ilyas alayhi salam asked on that mountain, the one no one could answer. How long will you waver between two opinions? Because here is the truth, that this ancient story was preserved to teach you. Baal was never really about a statue. Baal was about a transaction. It was the belief that something other than Allah controls your provision, that something other than Allah holds the keys to your rizq, your safety, your future, your fear, and your hope. And that belief did not die 3,000 years ago. It is alive, it is everywhere, it has simply learned to hide. When a man believes his job is the true source of his income, not Allah but the job, and so he abandons his prayer, he lies, he cheats, he steps on others, because he is terrified that if he obeys his Lord, he will lose his livelihood. What is that, if not Baal? He is begging the storm god for rain all over again. When a person chases the approval of the crowd, edits their whole life to please strangers, sacrifices their values, their modesty, their honesty, their peace, all to feed the hunger of being seen. What is that, if not an altar, a new idol, demanding new sacrifices, promising a rain of love and acceptance that it can never actually deliver? When we are more afraid of what people think than what Allah thinks, when we are more worried about our bank balance than our book of deeds, when we will break a command of Allah without blinking, but would never dare break a custom of society, that is the worship of Baal, wearing a modern suit. The people on that mountain were not stupid. They were not evil cartoons. They were frightened human beings who had been convinced that their survival depended on something other than their creator. And in that fear, they gave their hearts to a stone. We do the exact same thing. We have just traded the stone for status, for money, for image, for the endless approval of people who will forget us the moment we are gone. But look at what actually happened on that mountain. Look at it carefully. The hundreds of priests with all their power, all their wealth, all their numbers, all their screaming and their bleeding, they got nothing. Silence, an empty sky, and one man, alone, with a soaked altar and a quiet heart, lifted his hands to the one God, and the heavens answered with fire. That is the whole story. That is the entire point. It is never about the numbers. It is never about how powerful the lie looks or how alone the truth feels. When the moment of truth comes, every false god goes silent, and the only one who answers is the one who was real the entire time. The rain those people begged Baal for was always coming from Allah. The provision you are chasing through compromise and fear is already written by Allah. The acceptance you are starving for from strangers is nothing next to the love of the one who created you. You have been thanking the wrong source. You have been afraid of the wrong thing. So here is what this story is really asking you to do tonight. Find your Baal. Find the thing you secretly believe controls your life more than Allah does. The fear that makes you compromise, the desire that makes you bow, the approval you cannot live without. Find it, name it, and then do what Ilyas alayhi salam did. Pour water on it, drown it, refuse the fire, and turn your hands quietly to the only one who has ever answered. Because there will come a day for every single one of us when we stand on our own mountain, when the offering is laid out and the test is real, and every false god we ever bowed to stands silent beside us. On that day, the money will not answer, the status will not answer, the crowd we sacrificed everything for will not answer. Every Baal we ever fed will stand mute, exactly as that stone idol stood mute, while one question hangs in the air over all of creation. Who did you really worship? Make sure that when fire falls from that sky, it falls on the right altar. Make sure that the one you called upon in the silence of the night is the one who actually holds the heavens. Do not be the nation that was drowning in mercy and praising a corpse of stone for the rain. Ilyas alayhi salam asked them 3,000 years ago, and the words are still waiting for your answer right now. If Allah is God, then follow him.